Hey, Lucia, when you think Golden Age Hollywood, you picture like pure glamour, right? Impeccable stars, always on point.
Absolutely, Mark. That's the image we've always been fed. But the thing is, well, it was exactly that, an image, a really, really carefully constructed image by the studios. They were, these massive dream factories, and they weren't just making movies. They were practically like manufacturing entire personalities for their stars. It's wild.
So it wasn't just about finding talented people then. It was almost like a character brief, but for a real person's public life? I mean, whoa, that's intense.
Oh, totally. Take someone like Joan Crawford. Her whole persona, the fierce independence, the sophisticated but vulnerable woman. A lot of that was carefully crafted to resonate with audiences, particularly women finding their own voice. Or Judy Garland, the sweet, innocent girl next door. That was a huge part of MGM's branding for her, even as she, got older and the reality of her life was, well, incredibly complex and much darker behind the scenes. It's fascinating how much control they had over every, single aspect.
Wow, yeah, that's a whole other layer, isn't it? So, shifting gears a bit, what about some of those iconic films themselves? Were their productions as smooth as the final product often suggests? Or was it like absolute chaos behind the camera?
Chaos. Definitely chaos, Mark. Think about Casablanca, right? One of the most beloved films ever. You'd imagine, a perfect script, seamless production, but actually, the script was still being written during filming. I mean, actors would get their lines sometimes just hours before shooting the scene. Humphrey Bogart, apparently, he didn't even know if his character Rick was going to end up with Ilsa or stay with Victor until the very, very end of production. Can you imagine that pressure?
No way. So, Here's Looking at You Kid could have been Here's Looking at You Honey, or something completely different if the writers had just gone another way. That's insane. And it worked?
It worked. It absolutely worked. It was this perfect storm of, incredible talent, a fantastic story, even with the last-minute changes, and this sort of wartime urgency that gave it this extra emotional punch. It's a testament to the sheer professionalism and, frankly, the magic that could happen even in the most disorganized situations back then. It's a really great example, I think, of how sometimes the best things emerge from a bit of creative pandemonium.
Creative pandemonium. I like that. We always talk about the stars and the directors, but who were some of the unsung heroes behind the scenes? The people who really shaped the stories, but maybe didn't get the same spotlight.
Oh, Mark, that's such a good question, and there are so many. But one person who immediately comes to mind is Frances Marion. You've probably never heard her name, right? But she was the most prolific and highly paid screenwriter of her time, male or female. She wrote over 300 scripts, winning 2 Academy Awards for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Story. She started in the silent era, transitioning perfectly into talkies. She basically shaped the careers of stars like Mary Pickford, giving them powerful, relatable roles.
300 scripts and 2 Oscars. That's just wild. Why don't we know her name as much as, say, Frank Capra or Billy Wilder? It seems like she was absolutely critical to that whole system.
Well, sadly, it's often the way in Hollywood, especially back then, that the writers and particularly female creatives didn't get the same historical recognition. She was a pioneering woman in a male-dominated industry, and she didn't just write. She really understood the craft, the audience, and the stars. She had this knack for creating stories that truly resonated. I mean, she wrote Men and Bill for Marie Dressler and Wallace Beery, which was a huge hit. She really was like a titan, but her legacy often gets, overshadowed.
It's a shame that happens. So, changing topic, a lot of what we see from that era, it's so squeaky clean compared to today. Was there something actively, sanitizing everything?
Oh, absolutely. That would be the Hays Code, or the Motion Picture Production Code. It was voluntarily adopted by the studios in 1930, but it really started being strictly enforced in 1934. It was essentially like a set of moral guidelines that dictated what could and couldn't be shown, or implied in films. Things like no excessive kissing, no nudity, no positive portrayal of crime, no depicting drug use. Even like married couples couldn't be shown in the same bed. It was very, very strict.
Wait, no married couples in the same bed? That's just wild. So how did filmmakers, how did they even tell stories with any kind of edge? Did they just like have to completely avoid certain topics, or did they get clever?
They got incredibly clever. It really forced writers and directors to be very creative with implications, with dialogue, with visual cues. Think about films like It Happened One Night, where, Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert are separated by the walls of Jericho sheet in their motel room. It implies intimacy without ever showing anything. Or, the way film noir later on used shadows and cynical dialogue to hint at darker themes without explicitly showing them. It's a testament to human ingenuity, really, that they found ways to push boundaries even under such strict censorship.
Walls of Jericho. I love that. So, beyond the official rules, what about the unofficial ones? I've heard stories about studios having immense control over stars' personal lives. Is that, like, just rumor, or was it really that intrusive?
Oh, it was absolutely that intrusive, Mark. Think about it. Stars were properties of the studios under these incredibly restrictive long-term contracts. The studios controlled their image, their roles, even their personal lives. They'd have clauses in contracts about marrying, about dating. There were even fixers whose job it was to, hush up scandals, arrange sham marriages if a star was queer or involved in something scandalous. Anything to protect the star's public image, and by extension, the studio's investment. It was really a dark side of that glamour.
So, like, publicists and lawyers weren't just spinning things. They were actively orchestrating entire parts of people's lives. That's pretty dystopian, honestly. I mean, we look back and see this golden glow, but it was almost like a gilded cage for some of these actors.
Exactly. A gilded cage. That's the perfect way to put it. For every success story, there were stars who struggled immensely under that pressure, that lack of personal freedom. They owned the stars' names, their faces, their very existence, really. And if you stepped out of line, well, the studio had ways of, punishing you, loaning you to a terrible film, suspending your pay. It was a powerful, powerful system. And it really showed the immense, almost absolute control these moguls had.
It really does paint a different picture, doesn't it? So, after all these secrets and challenges and all that control, what do you think is the biggest, lasting legacy of that golden age for us today? Beyond just the great movies, obviously.
That's a great way to end this, Mark. I think the biggest legacy, well, it's twofold. First, it's the sheer power of storytelling that was perfected during that era. They understood how to captivate an audience, how to build mythology around figures, and how to create escapism. But the second part, I think, is the tension between art and commerce and personal freedom versus public persona. That's a struggle that still really resonates in Hollywood, with social media and celebrity culture today. It all started back then.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Like, the seeds of today's celebrity machine were, planted way back then, just without the internet. That's a really insightful point. It kind of makes you look at every movie star differently, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? It makes you appreciate the layers, the incredible craft, but also the human stories behind the silver screen. And that's what makes the Golden Age so endlessly fascinating, in my opinion. There's always something more to discover, It's not just like black and white footage. It's a vibrant, complicated history.